Hello, I'm glad you could join me in my study today. I mentioned earlier that the idea of substitutionary atonement is clearly found in Isaiah chapter 53, the song about the suffering servant of the Lord. And virtually all scholars recognize that this passage is teaching the substitutionary suffering of the servant on behalf of the people. But I think that the idea of substitution is actually already to be found in the sacrificial offerings prescribed in Leviticus. Death is the consequence of sin, and the animal dies in the place of the sinner. And that this is the meaning of the symbolism of animal sacrifice is evident in the hand-laying ritual that precedes the sacrifice, described in Leviticus 1:4, for example. The offerer bringing the animal is required to lay his hand upon its head before he kills it. And this shows his identification with the animal in its death. Now, Jacob Milgrom, who is a Jewish commentator that I mentioned last time, interprets this action differently. He says that the hand-laying is merely a way of indicating whose animal it is. Milgrom says, the hand-leaning was not required for cereal offerings or the offering of a bird or a financial substitute because the person brought it in his hand, and so it was obviously his. But it is required for all quadrupeds because they would have to be dragged in by rope or bought from the sanctuary stock. In either case, the ownership would have to be established. Now, I must confess that I find such an interpretation to be quite implausible. Someone dragging in an animal by a rope around its neck before the priest shows clearly whose animal it is, just as clearly as someone who carries in his hand a bird or grain for sacrifice. Moreover, the hand is not merely laid on the animal's head, as if to say, this is mine. Rather, the word used to describe this gesture means to press, an emphatic gesture. By this gesture, the worshiper symbolically indicates his identification with the animal that he will sacrifice. Now, we shouldn't think of this in terms of a magical penetration of the worshiper's soul into the animal, but rather in substitutionary terms. The animal's death symbolizes the death of the sinner who offers the sacrifice. And thus Leviticus 1:4 promises, the animal shall be accepted for him to make atonement for him.